Patience is a profound quality, often misunderstood in its depth and power. It is not merely the act of waiting, but the art of being present in waiting. In isolation, we are stripped of distractions. The noise of the world fades, and what remains is the essence of who we are. Think of a seed buried in the earth. In its darkness, it does not question the soil or fight to break free prematurely. It rests, nourished by unseen forces, waiting for the right moment to emerge. This is not a passive waiting, but a deep trust in the process. So too, in our isolation, we are invited to trust. The discomfort, the longing, the uncertainty, they are all part of the soil in which our spirit can take root. Restoration comes not when we will it, but when we are ready to receive it. It is divine because it transcends our understanding, arriving not as a result of our effort, but as a gift of alignment. It is the natural order of things. The caterpillar, confined within its cocoon, might perceive it as isolation. Yet it is within this quietude that transformation unfolds. What emerges is not merely a continuation of what was, but something altogether new, a butterfly, free and boundless. In isolation, patience teaches us to stop seeking and start seeing. We learn to observe without judgment, to accept without resistance, to rest without guilt. This is not an escape from life, but a deep immersion into its essence. We come to understand that life is not something happening to us, but something happening through us. And when the restoration comes, it feels almost inevitable, as if it had been there all along, waiting for us to notice. The divine does not hurry, yet it accomplishes everything. It does not force, yet it transforms. Through patience in isolation, we align ourselves with this flow, and in that alignment, we find not just restoration, but a deeper connection to all that is. Isolation often feels like a punishment, an imposed exile from the rhythms and connections of everyday life. Yet, what if this perceived punishment is actually a gift, one disguised as discomfort? The unease we feel in solitude stems from our conditioning to equate stillness with stagnation. But the truth is quite the opposite. Stillness is the ground upon which transformation is born. And patience is the ground upon which transformation is born. And patience is the gentle hand that tends to its unfolding. When we are alone, the world stops mirroring back to us who we think we are. The identities we wear, the busy professional, the social butterfly, the dependable friend, fall away in the quiet. What's left is not emptiness, but a deeper invitation to meet ourselves as we are, without the masks. This is not an easy meeting. It is raw, unfiltered, and often uncomfortable. The silence of isolation echoes loudly with all the things we've avoided, buried or ignored, but therein lies its power. Patience is not passive endurance, it is active engagement with the present moment, an act of faith that life is working for us, not against us. In this engagement, we begin to notice things that were once obscured by noise. The way our breath moves in and out, the subtle beating of our heart. the way light dances on a wall. These are not trivial observations, they are doorways into a profound truth. Life is rich, even in its simplicity. When we resist isolation, we cling to the illusion that fulfillment lies outside of ourselves. But true restoration comes when we stop resisting and start listening. In the quiet, life speaks in whispers. It reveals the patterns of our thoughts, the stories we tell ourselves, the fears that shape our actions. It invites us to question these narratives, to sit with our fears, and to recognize that they are not permanent fixtures, but passing clouds. Time in isolation takes on a different quality. It stretches and folds in ways that can feel disorienting. Minutes feel like hours and days blend into one another. Yet, this distortion is also a gift. It strips away the urgency that dominates so much of our lives and replaces it with spaciousness. In this spaciousness, we begin to understand that life is not a race to be won, but a journey to be experienced. Patience allows us to sink into this realization, to let go of the need to control, and to trust in the unfolding of each moment. Consider the rhythms of nature. Patience and isolation is not about waiting for life to return to what it was. It is about allowing life to become what it is meant to be. This requires surrender, not a giving up, but a giving in. It is a recognition that we are not separate from life, but an integral part of its flow. When we surrender to this flow, we stop fighting against the current, and instead allow it to carry us toward restoration. This restoration is not merely a return to balance. It is a deep divine renewal. It is a reawakening to our true nature, a remembering of who we are beyond the roles we play and the labels we wear. It is a process that cannot be rushed, for it unfolds not according to our timeline, but according to the rhythm of life itself. And this rhythm is not random or chaotic. It is precise, purposeful, and always aligned with our highest good. In the stillness of isolation, we also come face to face with our desires, the things we think we need to feel complete. At first, these desires may clamor for attention, urging us to fill the emptiness with distractions. But if we can be patient, if we can sit with the discomfort of unmet desires, we may come to see them for what they are, echoes of a deeper longing. This deeper longing is not for things or achievements, but for connection with ourselves, with others, and with the divine essence that flows through all things. As we cultivate patience, this deeper connection begins to emerge. It is not something we create, but something we uncover, like a treasure buried beneath layers of soil. And as this connection deepens, we begin to see that the isolation we once resented was never a punishment. It was a call to return to ourselves, to the essence of who we are. The reflections fills us with solidarity. It is a sense of who we are. The world often equates success with action, with doing and achieving. But in isolation, we learn the power of being. Being is not inactivity. It is the deepest form of engagement with life. It is a state of openness, receptivity, and presence. In this state, we discover that the things we once sought outside ourselves, peace, joy, fulfillment, were always within us, waiting to be uncovered. Restoration comes not as a sudden burst of light, but as a gentle dawning. It is a process of becoming, of shedding the layers that no longer serve us and stepping into the fullness of who we are. It is not something we achieve, but something we allow. And in allowing, we align ourselves with the divine flow of life. The beauty of this process is that it is unique for each of us. No two journeys of restoration are the same, just as no two seeds grow in the same way. Patience teaches us to honor our journey, to trust in its timing, and to embrace its unfolding. It reminds us that we are not alone in our isolation, for the same life force that moves through us moves through all things. We are part of a greater whole, connected by an invisible thread of divine love. The restoration that comes through patience in isolation is not just personal, it is universal. As we transform, we contribute to the transformation of the world. Our individual renewal ripples outward, touching the lives of others and reminding them of their own capacity for growth and restoration. In this way, patience in isolation becomes not just a personal practice, but a sacred act of service. The beauty of patience lies in its quiet strength. It does not demand or control. It waits, steady and unwavering, for the right moment to unfold. In isolation, this quiet strength becomes both a mirror and a teacher. It reflects back to us the restless energy we carry, the urgency to move, to fix, to do. Yet it also offers an alternative, the profound wisdom of simply being. To live patiently is to step into harmony with the natural order of things. There is no need to rush the sunrise, for it will rise in its time. There is no need to force the bloom of a flower, for it will open when it is ready. Likewise, in isolation, there is no need to push against the quiet or the stillness. Instead, we are called to honor the pace of life, to recognize that every pause has its purpose, every silence its own music. At first, the solitude of isolation may feel unbearable, a vast emptiness stretching out before us. The mind, accustomed to constant stimulation, begins to rebel. It conjures worries and fears, amplifies doubts, and pulls us into imaginary futures or replayed pasts. Yet this very discomfort is an invitation. It invites us to turn inward, to sit with what arises, and to explore the terrain of our inner world. In this exploration, we may discover wounds we have long ignored, beliefs we have taken for granted, and patterns of thought that no longer serve us. These discoveries are not meant to discourage us. They are the keys to our liberation. Patience allows us to face these truths without judgment, to hold them with compassion, and to create space for healing. Healing, after all, is not a linear process. It is a dance of weaving together of broken threads into something new and whole. In the silence of isolation, we also come to recognize the beauty of small things. A single moment, watching the light shift across a room, feeling the warmth of the sun on our skin, hearing the rustle of leaves in the wind, can become a portal to the infinite. These moments remind us that life is not defined by grand events, but by the accumulation of simple sacred experiences. Patience opens our eyes to these moments, teaching us to savor them fully. Time itself begins to transform under the gaze of patience. The hurried pace of the world fades, replaced by a deeper rhythm. In this rhythm, we find that time is not something to be conquered or controlled, but something to be embraced. Each moment becomes an opportunity to be present, to breathe, to connect. This presence is not passive. It is a dynamic engagement with life as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. As we settle into this rhythm, we may begin to sense the undercurrents of a greater intelligence at work. Call it divine, call it the universe, call it life itself. It is the force that animates all things, the thread that weaves the tapestry of existence. In isolation, when the noise of the world subsides, this force becomes more apparent. We see it in the cycles of nature, in the rise and fall of our breath, in the way life continues to unfold, moment by moment, without our interference. This recognition is humbling. And as we trust, restoration begins to take root. This restoration is not a return to what was, but a movement toward what can be. It is a shedding of old skins, a release of what no longer serves us, and an opening to new possibilities. It is a process of becoming one that is both gentle and profound. There is no rush, for restoration is not something that can be hurried. It is a gradual awakening, a deep remembering of our true nature. In this awakening, we come to see that isolation is not a punishment, but a pilgrimage. It is a journey inward, a sacred voyage to the depths of our being. Along the way, we encounter both shadows and light, both pain and joy. Patience guides us through these encounters, reminding us that every step, no matter how small, is part of the path. The path of isolation is not a solitary one, even though it may feel that way at times. We are never truly alone, for we are part of a vast web of existence. The same force that moves through us moves through the stars, the oceans, the trees. In our quiet moments, we can feel this connection, a pulse of life that binds us to all that is. This connection is the essence of restoration. It is not something we create, but something we rediscover, something that has always been present. As we continue to walk this path, we may notice a shift in how we perceive the world. The things that once seemed so urgent, so pressing, begin to lose their hold on us. In their place, we find a deeper appreciation for the present moment, for the beauty of simply being alive. This is the gift of patience in isolation. It strips away the superficial and reveals the sacred. Restoration is not a destination, it is a state of being. It is a return to alignment, a harmony between who we are and who we are becoming. This harmony cannot be forced or faked. It must be allowed to emerge naturally. Patience is the soil in which this harmony grows, the sunlight that nurtures its growth, the water that sustains it. Without patience, restoration remains out of reach, a distant possibility. With patience, it becomes an inevitable reality. The process of restoration also changes how we relate to others. As we cultivate patience with ourselves, we become more patient with those around us. We see them not as obstacles or challenges, but as mirrors and teachers. their struggles, their flaws, their journeys. All of these become opportunities for connection and compassion. In this way, the restoration of the self extends outward, touching the lives of others and creating ripples of transformation. The true power of patience in isolation lies in its ability to bring us back to the present moment. It reminds us that life is not happening somewhere out there. It is happening here, now, in this very breath. When we embrace this truth, we discover a peace that cannot be shaken, a joy that does not depend on external circumstances, and a love that flows freely and unconditionally. This is the restoration we seek, the restoration that seeks us in return. Patience in isolation is a paradoxical experience. It feels like stillness, yet it contains the pulse of transformation. It feels like nothing is happening, yet beneath the surface everything is shifting. It teaches us that the absence of movement is not the absence of progress. Life is constantly rearranging itself, even when we cannot see it. Trust in this unseen process requires a profound surrender, a willingness to let go of the need for immediate answers and visible results. This surrender is not easy. The mind, ever restless, will resist. It will demand explanations, timelines, and guarantees. It will clamor for distractions to fill the void. But the void is not something to be feared. It is a space of potential. In that space, creation begins. The universe itself emerged from a void, a nothingness that held the promise of everything. In the same way, isolation holds within it the seeds of restoration. To be patient is to nurture those seeds, to allow them to germinate in their own time. The discomfort of waiting is something we have been conditioned to avoid. Modern life prizes efficiency, speed, and instant gratification, but the deeper truths of existence do not conform to these demands. A tree does not grow faster because we wish it to. A river does not change its course because we demand it. These processes unfold according to their own inherent wisdom, and so do we. When we learn to be patient, we align ourselves with this wisdom. We step out of the frantic pace of the world and into the timeless flow of life itself. In the quiet of isolation, we begin to see the patterns we have been caught in, the constant striving, the endless doing, the unrelenting pursuit of something more. All of these come into sharp focus when we stop. And when we stop, we can ask ourselves the deeper questions. What are we chasing? Why do we believe we are incomplete as we are? These questions are not meant to be answered quickly. They are meant to be lived, explored, and allowed to unfold over time. Patience gives us the courage to sit with the questions without rushing to conclusions. The stillness of isolation also reveals the subtle beauty of life. It sharpens our senses and attunes us to the small, often overlooked moments. The way the light shifts through the day, the sound of rain tapping against a window, the sensation of breath moving in and out of our bodies. These moments, so ordinary, are also extraordinary. They remind us that life is not found in grand events, but in the quiet miracles of the everyday. Patience opens our eyes to these miracles, teaching us to find joy in what is already here. As we settle into this awareness, a subtle transformation begins. The need to prove ourselves diminishes. The urge to control lessens. We begin to trust that we are exactly where we need to be, even if it feels uncomfortable. This trust is the foundation of restoration. It allows us to release the weight of expectations and to embrace the present moment as it is. And in doing so, we create space for the divine to enter. Restoration is not about fixing what is broken. It is about realizing that nothing was ever truly broken to begin with. The cracks and fractures we perceive in ourselves are simply places where the light can enter. Patience allows us to see this light, to recognize that even our pain and struggle have a purpose. They are part of the alchemy of transformation, turning what we once saw as weakness into strength, what we once saw as loss into opportunity. In the process of restoration, we may find that the things we once thought essential are no longer needed. The roles we clung to, the identities we built, the attachments we held, they begin to fall away. This shedding can feel like a loss, but it is also a liberation. It creates space for something new to emerge, something more aligned with our true essence. This emergence cannot be forced. It must be allowed. Patience is the midwife of this process, guiding us gently through the birth of a new way of being. The journey of isolation is also a journey of connection. At first it may feel like we are cut off from the world, but as we go deeper, we begin to see the threads that bind us to all of existence. We realize that our solitude is not a separation, but a communion. The same silence that surrounds us is the silence that holds the stars, the mountains, the oceans. It is the silence that connects us to something greater than ourselves, something vast and infinite. This connection brings with it a profound sense of peace. We come to understand that we are not alone, even in our solitude. The same force that moves through the natural world moves through us. It is the force that causes the tides to rise and fall, the seasons to change, the sun to rise each morning. It is the force of life itself, always flowing, always renewing. When we align ourselves with this flow, we become part of something timeless and eternal. Restoration is not an end point. It is a way of being. It is a return to our natural state of balance, a state that is not static, but dynamic. It is a rhythm, a dance between stillness and movement, between patience and action. When we live in this rhythm, we find that life becomes less about achieving and more about experiencing. We become less focused on the destination and more attuned to the journey. Patience teaches us that the journey is enough. It teaches us to find contentment in the moment, to trust in the unfolding of life, to embrace the mystery of the unknown. It teaches us that we do not need to have all the answers, for the answers will come when we are ready to receive them. And in the meantime, we can simply be, we can breathe, we can listen, we can rest. This resting is not a withdrawal from life, but a deep participation in it. It is a recognition that life is not something we do, but something we are. It is an invitation to return to ourselves, to the quiet center within us that remains steady amidst the changing tides of the world. In this center we find not only restoration, but also renewal. We find not only restoration, but also renewal. We find the strength to begin again, to step forward with clarity and purpose, to live in harmony with the flow of existence. Through patience in isolation, we come to see that restoration is not something we achieve, but something we allow. It is not a reward for our efforts, but a natural consequence of our surrender. It is a gift, freely given, waiting for us to open our hearts and receive it. And when we do, we find that we are not only restored, but transformed. We are not the same as we were before the isolation. We are something new, something deeper, something more aligned with the truth of who we are. In the stillness of isolation, where time slows and the noise fades, lies the profound truth that patience is not a mere act of waiting. It is a sacred practice of trusting. Trusting in the process, in the unseen forces of life, and in our own ability to transform. Restoration does not come from resistance or rushing. It emerges when we embrace the journey, however uncomfortable, and allow it to shape us. The cracks we fear in isolation are not signs of brokenness. They are openings for light. Let this be the message we carry. Isolation is not the absence of connection. It is the gateway to deeper communion with ourselves, with others, and with the divine flow of life. When we surrender to the process and nurture patience within our hearts, restoration becomes inevitable. It is not just a return to balance, but an awakening to a greater, more expansive version of ourselves. From the stillness we rise, not as we were, but as we were always meant to be.